Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the BIONICLEsector01 podcast, brought to you by the staff of the BS01 Wiki. We're here to talk about Bionicle, so if you enjoy this series, we hope you'll enjoy listening too. We've got a great show lined up, and we'll jump right into the first segment after introductions. I'm your host, Kralix.
Hey, this is Kyra.
And this is Triggy.
And Triggy's going to start us off with some discussion on things that happened this week in the Bionicle series.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Craw. Alright, this week in Bionicle we've got a couple of exciting postings. First and foremost on everyone's mind is, of course, the release of the Bionicle 5 treatment, the movie that will never happen. The 2010 film that would have been a sequel to The Legend Reborn. This came, I think, as quite a surprise to everyone. The content therein and also the release itself. Greg is usually a little bit more clandestine in his releasing of upcoming material, but as he says, because this will never be happening and storyline was changed to accommodate for the end of Bionicle, here we have it. There are, of course, the release of a couple non-canon names, which everybody is clambering over and hoping to have Greg canonize this as an alternate universe within the Bionicle canon, but if you ask my humble opinion, I think it's best left as a curiosity, as he says.
Right, and I think he said that that's not going to happen, so pretty much squashed everybody's dreams.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Alright, next up on the agenda, we've got the advent of a new serial possibly taking place within the Matoran universe. There's been some discussion with members of the BS01 staff and Greg about a new serial upcoming in the aftermath of Bionicle has officially ended. Right now there's a couple of polls up on BZP about the possibility of new TOA elements being featured within this serial, and a group of 6 names that Greg needs approved by TLP before he can use them. So I think we're getting the impression that this is going to be a 6 TOA team. So that's exciting, hails back a little nostalgia there for us longtime Bionicle fans. And right now, as I said, there's a couple of polls up on BZP about what kind of elements our fans would like to see represented. Of course, this is up to Greg himself, but because he's been pretty good about listening to us in the past, it'd be very exciting if we threw in something like Psionics, of course, which was the recently canonized element in conjunction with BS01 and the same Matoran, as we learned about through various PMs and the OGD.
So those polls can be found in the BS01 forum, right?
That is correct.
Alright, let's take a second to talk about this serial. So, Kyrie, what was your first impression on learning about it?
One of my biggest interests is probably for a lot of the older fans, whether they're really going to worry about following along with this. Even if it does have some sort of elements that are, reminiscent of Bionicle, the fact that there are 6 of them and whatnot, it makes me kind of curious as to who's going to stay interested. I mean, since I still get the magazines, I'm probably going to follow along, but I really don't know if I'm going to get that into the new series, but I am excited because some of the younger people who have just more recently gotten into Bionicle, they'll be starting out really from scratch, and they'll get to know everything from the beginning. It'll be a lot easier than trying to learn the last 9 years.
Right. How about you, Trig?
I'm a bit of a storyline puritan. Anything for me that comes from Greg is usually looked on as sacred. So if he is the one writing it, I'll probably be pleased with whatever he comes up with. That said, I would like to see uncommon elements in use. We're all familiar at this point with what fire's capabilities are, ices, waters, etc. But to see something like magnetism in use, I mean, we've heard about Tor Jovan, but only very fleetingly. So it'd be nice to see them actually in use. And there are something like 56 TOA left in the Matoran universe, and we only know about an odd 20 of those, including, the Mari, and the Nuva are still in the mix. So if we could identify a couple of those missing TOA, I think that would help round us out storyline-wise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was also excited to learn about it, but I have a couple gripes. I just don't like things that are predictable, so with the news of Bionicle ending, the set's no longer being released, a lot of people are excited that Greg will be free to write about more things that he wants and not be restricted to having to write about the sets that are being promoted. So I find it kind of disappointing that there's going to be probably 6 TOA in the team. I think it would be nice to see a different combination. And it will be nice to learn about new elements, but again, with the predictability thing, I'd like to see a mix, like maybe 1 or 2 of the elements that we've seen before, and 3 or 4, 5 new ones would be interesting.
So kind of like Lesevic's team that we learned about in Dreams of Destruction in 2007.
Yeah.
Having the mix there.
Yeah.
Something that I kind of am curious about, whether he's going to tend more to like the bio side of everything, because really we started out, Bionicle started out, and we'll be talking more about this later, but it started out being more robotic and stuff, and throughout the years, especially towards the end, he got a lot more into them being actual biological creatures and just having armor over them. It makes me wonder if he's going to take this time, with the fact that he doesn't have to work with sets, to make things that are almost completely biological, or if he's going to try to go maybe back to more robotic type of things. I'm curious about how his style is going to be when he's really in control of everything and he doesn't have to worry about sets.
Yeah.
The notion of biomechanicality that came into it, as Kairu said, later in the line, was actually a bit of a surprise to me. I had always viewed them in 2001 when we saw the promo animations of them. You could hear the gears moving. Their speech patterns seemed to sound something like gears turning. So I had always viewed them as being entirely robotic, but sentient. And so the understanding that they were going to be, living things coated with protodermic armor was something that it took me a long time to be okay with.
Mm-hmm. How about the change when we went to Glatorian? Did that take you by surprise, how they were mainly non-biomechanical?
I liked the idea about it, but the fact was that because of the sets being more restricted to being like sets and not like something biological, it really restricted the ability to show the fact that they were more of living, breathing creatures. And you saw that in the movie, too. They didn't change a whole lot to make it obvious that they were biological.
And they even had those infamous gears turning,
yeah,
which spurned a lot of debate.
Right.
And it could be seen either way, but...
Yeah, so on the topic of being curious as to which direction Greg will go, I think a lot of people are excited because he's a lot more free, like he was when he was writing the book Time Trap in Bionicle Adventure series, which a lot of people agree was one of the best ones. It's one of my favorites. Did you guys read Time Trap?
I did not. I did not get a chance.
I haven't, no.
Well, if you ever get to, I think you'd like it because Greg focuses exclusively on Wakama and some run-ins with Makuta and the Shadowed One and the Vahis in there. It's a really good book. Alright, Triggy, what's next?
Alright, next up on This Week in Bionicle, this actually happened, I think, a little more than a week ago, but there was mention of an upcoming serial, Samad's Tale, which would explain some history of the Iron Tribe, another recently canonized element of the storyline. It was nice to finally get an element on that tribe. I know a lot of people were freaking out about it for a really long time, but there's also going to be revelations about why the color on Biomagna for the Iron Tribe is orange, and there's been a lot of speculation as to, is it rust? Is it some side effect of the plague that struck that tribe several 100,000 years ago? So that's going to be exciting. I like that kind of look, kind of like the Mutran Chronicles, where we take a look back and see some of the pivotal elements that got us where we are today. Any thoughts on that?
I'm okay with this Samad serial. I hope that it will go into a lot of the history of the Iron Tribe, but I'm not particularly interested in the character Samad himself.
Right. Yeah, as you said, I'm hoping it's more of a look on the history of, hopefully, Spherus Magna and Biomagna than, him running around in the desert. As much as I love him running around in the desert, that'd be thrilling.
Yeah.
But to get a little more of a history would help, definitely, to flesh out our timeline here on BS01 and again on BGP, give us a better history of the planet.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts, Kairu?
Not really. I haven't actually been able to look up much on the Samad's Tale, but I am interested in the Iron Tribe. I've been kind of wondering what's up with them since then, so I'm just kind of waiting to see how it turns out.
Mm-hmm. And they were formerly known as the Plague Tribe because a plague wiped them out, basically, from Biomagna, and only a few survived. So maybe it'll go into that backstory.
Hopefully. And finally, from This Week in Bionicle, as recently reported on BTP, we have the first comic of 2010 coming up, All That Glitters. There are scans uploaded to BCP. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, I suggest you do. Very exciting comic for a lot of the fans who have been waiting for this kind of thing to happen. The title obviously in reference to the golden armor, that mysterious golden armor we're waiting to hear about that Toa Mata Tahu will be outfitted in. And other than that, there were thoughts that the content of that comic was a little bit rushed with the news that Bionicle was ending prematurely than was originally planned. Did you guys find, or first of all, have either of you had a chance to check out the scans for all the glitters?
I did, and I got a copy in the mail today, actually.
I did too, and it's very, very cool. If you guys haven't gotten it, oh man.
Yeah, it's a really good comic. I have got the feeling that they were rushed for a long time, though, comics in general. There's just a lot more stuff to cover in the story, and the page size went down over the years, so yeah, overall I've got the feeling that comics have been rushed, and this one isn't different, but all the same, it's a great comic, very good second to last comic, and has good artwork, awesome fighting scenes.
Of special note is the prototype Masanui robot, the face, as designed. I'm not sure if Popman got the opportunity to design that himself, but it's interesting to note that it is, in fact, different than the head that we saw in most official artwork of 2009 about the head that was sitting in Roxas, in Skull Mountain, in the Black Spike Mountains. So, obviously there's a little bit of a discontinuity issue there in terms of actual visual design, but I think that we're going to overlook that just because I think we can all agree that the design for that robot is just stunning. Very interesting to see in juxtaposition with the Makuta robot, as it's called in the comic, which we all know is the Matoran universe itself. So I guess that was done to differentiate the two, but because I think it was so expertly done from an aesthetic point of view, we won't be complaining too much that the continuity was a little bit off there.
Right, yes, the prototype robot is really cool, I think we all agree on that, but I guess the Great Beings thought differently because they changed the face after the prototype.
They did. Well, who knows what kind of beauty contest the Great Beings ran way back when on Cirrus Mag. So that just about wraps up this week in Bionicle there, Craw, if you're satisfied.
I am. So recap on this week is you can go ahead and read the treatment of the Bionicle 5 canceled movie screenplay that's on Greg Farshtey's blog on bzpower.com. It was announced that there will be a new serial coming up in 2010 where Greg will feature a new Toa team with unique elements.
Or so he hopes.
Right. He wants to. He took the suggestion from general manager of BS01, Erebus, actually, so it'll be cool. There's some polls on the BS01 forum in BZ Power going on about which elements, so check those out and get opinion heard. And Sawmat's Tale is also announced to be coming on as a serial. You can find all the serials on BionicleStory.com. And a comic came out. There are scans on BZ Power. You can find it in your mailbox soon. And it's awesome. We all recommend reading it as fast as possible. And we love it. So that's it for this week in Bionicle. Do we have a new visitor in here?
Yes, we do. We have Bossman Swart, and I'm not sure if he plans on saying much, but he, I guess he's sort of guest star right now.
He's lurking around here somewhere.
The Swart? Are we talking about the same Swart here?
We are.
Swart's the owner of BS01, our wiki.
A fearless leader.
He is attempting to jump in on our podcast. I guess we'll let him this time, if he can.
You're gonna love how I'm allowed to be on the call and all that.
There he is.
Hey, Swart.
Hello. I'm gonna have to, keep muting the microphone because I don't have headphones right now.
Oh boy. Well.
You're me. I'm the one that has to keep clicking.
Well, good to have you here anyway. Good luck with your muting. We just went over this week in Bionicle. Our next segment is OGD in brief. OGD stands for Official Greg Dialogue, and it's a topic on BZ Power where people can post their question and answers from Greg. So we've picked out a few of the best ones, in our opinion, or the most interesting. So who wants to read the first question?
I will. What would happen if a Toa of Psionics became an Anika? I can't figure out how the lightning would intertwine with their power.
This is a good question. Trigger, you want to read the answer?
I sure do. And the answer from Greg was basically his mental energy would manifest itself as lightning. I think we've got a little problem there just right off the bat, because I think it was confirmed that all Toa and Matoran and Traga psionics would be a her, so that's probably just an oversight from Greg, so let me read that answer correctly. Basically, her mental energy would manifest itself as lightning.
So somebody commented in the topic that if you wanted to read somebody's mind, you'd have to shoot a bolt of lightning at them. I guess is the case.
Which seems pretty violent.
It does. Not very sneaky either.
No.
So, I guess hopefully we won't be seeing a Toa Psionics Toa Inika of Psionics.
I think it might make for a pretty interesting watch, though. If he had it in the comics, if they were in Inika, that would be pretty cool. Not likely, but theatrics are fun.
Mm-hmm. Depends on, I guess, what the Red Star is doing, and that, of course, calls into question what the heck is going on with the Red Star, which is still a mystery.
Yes, we want to know. There are some mysteries that have been around since day one of Bionicle, and it's kind of cool, but also you want to know what happens, or what's up with it.
Hugely frustrating for us old biddies who have been waiting for the answer to such burning questions for so long, but I guess we'll be forced to wait a little while longer.
Definitely. Wirt, you want to read the next question?
I have no idea.
I'll read it. It says, does a Matoran choose his own occupation, or is it chosen for him by someone else, maybe the Turaga? Well, of course, nobody's working right now because the universe is taken over by Pterodax, but back in the day, Greg says that it's generally chosen for him, which was interesting. Something that is different than how our world works. I guess the Turaga choose what job the Matoran will work at for the rest of their life.
And I think presumably with reference to that decision, it's based on the Matoran's, aptitudes and interests in the first place. They're not going to have, for example, Jala become, an Ignalu lava surfer. They understand that he is, committed to his duty and that he is interested in protecting other people. So that decision probably isn't arbitrary. But it is interesting to note that it is the Turaga who probably makes that decision.
I want to inject real fast and comment saying, first of all, who in their right mind would give a Matoran the job of being a lava surfer? That's the only question I want to ask.
Somebody that they want dead?
More likely. Like, I don't like you. Go out into the lava. Okay.
In our world as well, I mean, we have entertainers. It could be said that Ignalu serves that very important purpose of keeping the masses, happy after a hard day of farming lava. Watch someone go and surf on the lava.
Yeah. First of all, then you would have to think to yourself, "Oh, wait a minute, why is he ruining all our hard work?" But yeah, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wonder why they didn't tell Akmau to go surf in lava.
Mm-hmm.
Simple reason, because they weren't smart enough.
Yeah,
likely.
So that's an interesting answer. It was followed up by somebody asking if they showed more promise in a different area, could they switch occupations, and Greg answered with yes.
I would not be shocked by that.
Yeah.
It personally sounds to me like something he hasn't given too much thought to. So that's something that, as fans with something like the Masanui Game 2, where we got an opportunity to find out some of the occupations that the Matoran held on the island of Matanui, that's something that we're more familiar with than he, I think, in that particular field of interest.
True. Want to read the next question, Trig?
Sure. What was Lesepic's team's destiny?
So, it's a good question, and turns out to have an interesting answer, which is to die, basically. We don't know that they accomplished anything major.
A bit of a disappointing answer, I thought.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of discussion is now going on about destiny and what it is and who decides it and why somebody can have a destiny to die. So, go ahead and get involved with that on BZ Power. I think I'll stay out of it.
I think that was his kind of short way of just saying that their
Don't
destiny.
worry about it.
Yeah, they're not just to die, but to die saving people, to die for their honor, to die protecting. That's pretty much, you could say that's the destiny of every Toa, is to to die protecting the
Right, in the service of those that they are sworn to protect.
Yeah.
True. So Greg could have said it a little more gracefully, but he's busy.
The fact that they didn't accomplish anything major probably is why he answered the way he did. Is that the fact that was that their purpose was to defend people, but they pretty much just died.
Which seems a little anticlimactic, seeing as we were told that was the first Toa team ever assembled. So, it speaks to, I guess, the resilience of Toa in general, that other people observing the fate of this team, they're going, well, maybe it's not such a good idea to get into teams. but I guess they looked upon this as a freak incident and chose to ignore it in the long run, which was good, because I think the decision to turn the Toa into kind of mini forces roving around that could work in conjunction with one another, again supported the notion of the three virtues. You know, unity is the first one. We hear about that. We've heard about that one for several years, so that plays into that.
Yeah, speaking of Lesovic's team, I want to hear more about Lesovic. I mean, he had his own serial for a long time, but I really like the character, and it'd be interesting to know what he's doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
What if he just, like, popped up in the next comic, in the last one, and saved the world?
Well, I think he'd certainly feel a lot better for what he'd done in the past. You know, we're told it even got an entry in the second encyclopedia, hiatus, which was what he was on for the last, several 100,000 years. So if he suddenly came back and saved Bionicle in general, that would be a bit of a shocker, I think. Unfortunately, I think he's taken a backseat to somebody like Tahu. I think we can guess that he'll be swinging his fire sword around and kicking a lot of Skakti behind later this year.
Yep.
All right, I'll ask the last question. Are there any Toa of Psionics alive as of now?
And the answer is yes, which means that probably since it was recently canonized as a psionics element, and there is one alive now, that we'll probably get it in the serial that we spoke about earlier.
And of course, that's another female Toa, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be the only one?
I don't know. It'd be interesting. I don't know yet. I think this would be the first team that we knew of that there were two female Toa. I don't believe there were two on Lesovic's team. I do believe there was the Toa of water on Lesovic's team. No, wait a minute. Then there must have been, because we had Nikila with lightning. So never mind. My comment is null and void.
I think it'd be interesting if there was more than one, because, well, even if they're not still a Toa, I'd like to know if there are any Toa of Psionics that got changed into something else. You know, like so many others have. They used to be Toa, but they became, otherwise.
Like a Dark Hunter, for example, or, they...
Dark Hunter or a Turaga or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And lightning is a female element, so maybe we'll get psionics and lightning in one team.
That would be cool.
And that's it for OGD in brief. This segment was originally supposed to be covered by Master of the Rakshi, another BS01 staff who hasn't been around in a little bit. The backup for this segment is Doric, who wanted to be here tonight and also is not, so I took over for this one.
Recent emergencies, so it's okay.
Yep.
And what a good job you did.
Oh, thank you. And our next segment is called BS01 Updates. In case you haven't heard of BS01, it's a wiki, the biggest and best and awesomest, of course, in my opinion. Wiki.
I guess.
Yes.
A very dedicated staff, might I add.
Yes, database for everything Bionicle. So if you want to know anything Bionicle, just go to biosector01.com and you'll have a nice main page with some featured special departments like Quote of the Week, Image of the Week, Member Spotlight, and more things. You can type in the search bar there for anything you want, and an article will come up. If it's not there, feel free to join and contribute. So that's BS01. BS01 Updates is a segment where we talk about any announcements. It's been a little bit of a slow week, but there is now a vote up in the voting center, which you can click on the sidebar to get to, for survey about the event log. It's a feature where you can find out what happens every day on the wiki. It needs to be improved a little bit, so we took a survey and now we're having a poll on the features you'd like to see. We also have a new relevancy policy. Our relevancy policy is what decides which items get their own articles and what just stays as a section on a different page. And that had a few problems, so we've got a new one up there, so make sure you check it out before trying to make any new pages. It should hopefully solve a lot of problems that we had. Right, guys?
Yes, it's our guiding light, and as always there are going to be exceptions. It's our mandate to try and keep things as organized as possible on BIONICLEsector01, and sometimes that requires, circumstances, extenuating circumstances put into effect where we have to use the relevancy policy to the best of our own judgment as people who observe and partake in the storyline. it's our job to try and synthesize information and make it as presentable as possible. So sometimes that brings us into opposition with other people, but know that it is usually done in the best interest of the wiki and to make sure that the information is accessible to everyone in a way that is understandable to everyone as well.
Mm-hmm. And so far I don't think there have been any complaints about it, so...
we soon shall see.
Yeah. Hopefully we did good. Feel free to put any comments on the talk page of the policy or on my talk page or anybody else's talk page. They're all there on the wiki.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for BS1 updates. We'll get right into our comic discussion segment. We go through one comic every episode, and hopefully you have been reading along with us or will read along with us for next episode. We'll discuss one comic at a time, and we're starting at comic number 1, which is called Tale of the Toa.
Alright. For starters, if you haven't read this, there's definitely still a lot of ways that you can still get it. There's places like eBay and stuff. I've gotten a few of the comics that I've been missing. So if you want to just complete your collection, I'd suggest you try out eBay, possibly Amazon. I'm not sure quite how good they have of resources at Amazon, but I'm sure there'll be a few out there. So that's definitely something worth looking into. It's a good thing to have the entire collection, and especially this one, because it's really exciting because this is the very beginning. This is where it all began. This is what got us oldies into it. Just looking through it again, I noted some interesting things about the storyline and the art and the characters. I think it's kind of interesting, like we were saying earlier, it started out a lot more of robotics, and we've never had quite as big of an alliteration to the fact that they are sets as we did in the very beginning of this one, where Kopaka, when he showed up on the island, he was assembled. He came in pieces and then just, came together by some sort of power. And I thought that was really interesting because we never really have had that much of set alliteration as far as the storyline.
Right, and he popped out of the Toa canister, which we, of course, bought them, and they were contained in the Toa canister, and it appeared in the comic, which is cool.
Yeah, and the Toa canisters and the Bow-Rock canisters are, I believe, the only canisters that really have ever had any part in the story.
What made those first couple of comics very enticing to fans is that there was a deliberate reference to the way that they were packaged to us in stores, and a comparison that could be drawn within the comic itself. So it made it feel like you were actually, picking up the canister that Kopaka would conceivably wash up on the shore on the store shelves of your local Walmart.
Yeah.
Got you a little bit more involved than right now, where the packaging serves basically to hold the pieces in.
Yeah, I think that's why the canisters started out being collectibles, because they really were a part of their story in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things about the comic I noticed in the art, there's just some things about it that I actually really miss, and I was glad when they came back this year. The fact that you can see the wear and tear on the Toa, you can see all the little just imperfections and stuff. For a long time after that, everything was shiny, everything was nice, but when they start up here, you definitely have just sort of an ancient feel, and it really helped the nuance of the beginning of this, that along with the fact that this comic could go along a lot, really slowly, a lot more so than it did later on.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to read through this and see that it wasn't constant action, 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 but there was a lot more discovery at that time happening, and it was a really neat way to start.
True, but my favorite part in the comic is when Kopaka jumps off of a cliff to save Motoro. It's like the only action in the comic, I think. It's a pretty cool couple of pages. It's my favorite part.
Yeah.
A lot of action parts later on, they really never have that sense of silence where it's just like that, that gasp moment. The fact that there's no talking while he's jumping for him. There's no speed lines really.
Yeah.
It was really kind of a neat effect. The fact that you just kind of held your breath for a second while he jumped.
True. That's probably why I like it.
Yeah.
I think in this comic specifically as well, there's an emphasis placed on the poetic quality of the language. I think Greg had a greater opportunity to get into moments where it's actually conversational as opposed to serving to move the plot forward. when Turaga Nuju is explaining the legend of Matanui to Kopaka, there's such excerpts as, "Our world, our people were once as pure and strong as ice, then Makuta came bringing evil to this land." I feel like you just don't get that kind of poetic quality to the language anymore, just because we are so rushed trying to cram in as much as possible into those comics. And 2001 was only a 3-comic year, but it seemed to me like we had less pacing issues than we do later on.
Yeah, and a lot of action happened, like, in between the comics, but I was really fine with that because later on most of it is action, and for some younger fans that might be an interest, but I was really more interested in the storyline and development of how things happened. I think that was one of the things that we kind of lost over time, especially with the fact that as they started getting more action-y, they also had to have dialogue to make sure it wasn't just action, and they started just having cheesy back-and-forth comments, and that kind of got on my nerves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back here it happens really rarely, and it's mostly, in the early ones, it's mostly only with Kopaka, and that really shows more of his character. A lot of people say that they have more of a personality than the newer ones do, and that's because they really had the time. They had the time in the comics to really develop that and show what kind of a person they each were, and they weren't all people who had snappy remarks and some catchphrase.
I've actually noticed that the comics down the line have gotten, I don't know, it's sort of a trade-off, if you ask me. Sort of a trade-off between the quality of the story and the quality of the art, because different artists, but it's the same writer. So it's definitely been fluxing for me. But definitely the first one was probably one of the better of all of them. Yeah.
In terms of actual script material, I would agree.
Yeah. The art wasn't as perfect as we were getting to expect later on, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, there's something to enjoy in each era of art. I mean, I don't want to completely discredit the later years because they are interesting in their own way, and I do like some of the parts where they have just shiny and bright and incredible, just like very elemental moments. But back in these early times, I just like how different it is. It's really a lot more of an ancient feel than, you know, where everybody knows what's going on. Here, everybody's just like, what in the world? Where are we? What's, you know, who am I?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like on some of the other comics. It's just like, one of the best examples was the one where Taru was running with a bunch of the Tanakh right behind him. And it's like, wait a minute, how did this happen? You know, it confused a lot of people, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to move on from comic discussion, but every episode we invite you to read along with us. Next time we'll be doing Comic 2, of course, and we invite you to send us your comments over. We'll read them on the show. We have one today from Obider. He's a member of BS01. He says, "I just wanted to say that it's interesting that Pohatu's body appears right side up like the other Toa's bodies."
It isn't in every frame, but it is in one or two of them.
Right, I hadn't noticed that before he pointed out there. You can find a couple places where his body's the same as the other Toa instead of having the gear of the set at the bottom to move his leg.
Yeah,
a few coloration issues as well.
Yeah, coloration. It's regrettable to go back and see how many errors they had. A lot of coloration issues, a couple of those drawing, and the omission of certain features on each of them that really were kind of more important to tell who they were later on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pohatu's mouth hole kind of disappeared in a couple of the frames.
Right.
Different things like that.
So we'd love to have your comments on the comics every episode, so make sure to send them over. There are a couple ways to get them to us. You can post in the BS01 podcast topic in BZ Power, in the BS01 forum, if that's not confusing enough. Just go to BZ Power, scroll down, BS01 has a forum, click on it, look for the podcast topic, and add your comment there. That's one of the ways. Also, we have a podcast page on BS01. Go to the wiki, type in podcast, it'll take you to the page, and edit the talk page. There's an area there, should be easy to find, where you can enter in your comments so that we can read them the next episode. And Swert would like you to email them to him also if you'd like to. His email address is SWERTMASTRA gmail.com. So 3 ways to get your comments to us. We want them, and hopefully we'll be having more on future episodes.
I just wanted to, the next segment, do a little discussion about sets, which are the
What? Sets on my website? No.
Yes, as much as we do like to deal with storyline, I wanted to delve a little bit into the actual design elements of set design over the years, how we arrived where we are from Bionicle's humble design beginnings in 2001. How I've structured this segment is that I'm going to make a couple of notes about each of the years, and then I'll invite discussion at the end of my kind of synthesized analysis of each year for comments from the other contributors to the podcast. So, starting with...
Just remember, sets is not always approved by BS1, but we love them anyway.
That's true. If we didn't have the sets, we wouldn't have much else. Although, of course, Bionicle continuing into 2010 and 2011, we'll have to make do without. But we're not there yet, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. So we'll start with 2001.
It will survive.
We will. We will survive. Starting with 2001, I had an opportunity to collect some sets from that year. I think I'm only missing the Nui Jaga and Nui Rama, but in general, looking back on the design of the canisters and the sets themselves, I think we have a predominant kind of use what you already have mentality. At that point, Bionicle was a subdivision of the Technic line, so they were using a lot of the pieces, the standard issue leg and arm pieces for the Toa. Of course, we had new molds for the torso of the Toa, for the feet, for the masks and the weapons, but other than that, you got the impression that we were kind of recycling pieces that had been seen before and using them in new ways. Something that's always been interesting to me is that the older pieces for those sets were unarticulated. There were no elbows, there were no knees, but they were always implied in the promotional animations that we got at the beginning. For example, when you see Leiwa swinging around, you see his knees bending in the animation, so that it's that kind of implied imagination that I think 2001 was all about, and gave us a lot of material to work with as imagined as members of the community. Thoughts on that?
My eyes sort of glazed over, but yeah, I got that.
Kairu, any thoughts?
Not only with the articulation, but I was interested to see how long the gear part of the sets lived on a couple of years after that. I thought it was interesting that while they started getting more articulate, I mean, they had knees and elbows by the time we had the Toa Metru, they still had the gears, and I thought that was kind of interesting because, I mean, with that much articulation and all the different features that they had, like some of them had movable tools and things like that, I was wondering why it was still kind of necessary to put in gears, but I thought maybe it was just them trying to make a transition to something new without enough people complaining that, it wasn't Toa at all anymore.
Yeah. So this week you went over 2001 and you're going to do more years later. Is that the right idea, Trig?
I'm thinking that would probably be a good idea, just because if we continue our discussion of 2001, that gives us more to work on for future podcast issues.
Perfect. So right now I can say, tune in next time for 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And plug our next episode shamelessly.
Oh, well, we're still in 2009. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, we gotta start somewhere, right? And it'll be good because the next one we'll be able to talk more about like villains and stuff like that instead of just the Toa, because right now it's mostly the Toa, but we can move on from that and start talking about the villains since the Toa stay the same for a year.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yep. Alright, so we've got a couple more segments left this episode. We're on topical discussion right now, where we pick one interesting topic to talk about, and this is handled by Kairu.
Yes, it is. A lot of people are still talking about the end of the line, and we already talked about it a little bit, but some interests are for the new... What's the new thing that's going to be coming out, because they said they would have something to replace it. A lot of people are going to be wondering if it will also be comic-based, if it will still be kind of more on the Technic side, or if they're really going to be heading back to something really, really of its own. Like, a lot of people are wondering how different it's going to be from Bionicle. I think it's kind of interesting because, as I said before, a lot of people will be going, but a lot of new people will be coming in, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how people adapt to it, whether BZ Power is going to expand to BZ Power and BS01, whether they're going to expand to something else. BS01 will probably stay its own, but I can't, make that kind of a decision. My guess it would be...
That's probably my job.
Yeah, definitely. But as far as BZ Power, it makes me curious, since a lot of the same fans are probably going to just, go right over into that next. It makes me wonder if BZ Power is going to expand to something different, whether somebody's going to start a different website or what. That's definitely something apart from what LEGO's doing to change. I wonder what the fan base is going to do to change. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder specifically, well, definitely, I hope for LEGO's sake that the new line is successful, because, I don't think we should ever bite the hand that feeds us. LEGO has been providing us with a very engaging and exciting LEGO line for the past decade, so I wish them all the best with their new line. Hopefully it'll have something for each of us to captivate our interest in the future while we're still interested in the Bionicle storyline. I just hope it doesn't have kind of the ill-fated end that stuff like Knight's Kingdom had, which tried to run concurrently.
I'll go there.
Oh, yeah.
But just never picked up momentum like Bionicle did. And it's too bad, because I think Knight's Kingdom was a fairly solid line, but in competition with Bionicle, I just don't think it had much ground to stand on.
And I would like to comment real fast. Sorry for cutting off, Cairo. We'll probably figure out what the sets are by February, I think is what it is, just to inject that real fast.
Right, at Toy Fair.
Right, at Toy Fair. And I don't know if I'm going to send anybody yet or not to check it out, but I know BZ Power will, and they could probably discuss it for us if we don't. But I would totally love to do a podcast based around those sets, if that's okay.
Yeah,
just injecting that out as a preview to the fans.
Yeah, so basically it was announced a little while ago by LEGO to BZ Power that the Stars would be the last sets in Bionicle. It'll be announced officially at Toy Fair in February when we'll learn about the new line. And for BS01 itself, as a storyline wiki...
It doesn't really affect us that much, if you think about it.
No.
It does, but it doesn't. Because, now...
We are storyline wiki.
Yeah, that's what I've always geared towards. And the other thing to consider is now that they're no longer having to plug the sets, okay, now they can go in and introduce new characters with new powers and not have to sell the story, or, sell the set line now. Now they can introduce brand new things, and it'd be totally different. I think that would be awesome. Yes.
Yeah, and they can stick to money-saving things like the red pins and blue axles while still making something that matches with them. Like with Bionicle, they had to, to keep up with what they've been doing, they had to make like 6 or 7 different colors for different things, and now that they can start from the ground up, they can make stuff to fit what is best for them. Because, even though they are trying to make stuff that we would enjoy, they also need to be making some sort of a profit and make sure it, lasts for a while.
Yeah.
So
makes total sense.
So
and starting from the beginning is a leg up for them, so...
Plus, with a brand new year coming around, a new decade, now it's like, okay, we had Bionicle in one decade, now it's the start of a new decade and a new product line, and let's see how that goes, because the generation's grown up. Now they got to go out, hook a new audience. And it makes total sense. From
From a marketing point of view, I think this is a wise move on LEGO's end. I just hope that, if at the end of 2000...
Hopefully it's successful.
Right, but I'm saying at the end of 2011, if, in fact, at that point, Greg's contract in terms of writing the Bionicle story has ended, that we can carry it on with something like the expanded multiverse and keep the story alive as, yes. Yeah, quick plug for the expanded multiverse, because I think the opportunities there are unlimited in terms of keeping the story alive.
Greg gets to keep writing story for us on BionicleStory.com for at least through 2011, which is great news. So this announcement from a storyline perspective is actually good news. And I was the one online, the wiki, when this was announced, and I was trying to keep everybody calm down and say, no, it's fine, we're not going anywhere, it's good news for us. And people got mad at me. They're like, no, this is terrible news, don't say that, Krolix.
I think they're mad at me more.
Yeah. 2 things. First, for those who are still skeptical about this being a good move for marketing purposes, I suggest you do go read. There's a BZP article that addresses that. And before, I was skeptical. I was like, what are they doing? They're wrecking by Lego. It's their biggest income. And the BZP article really sets it straight, because that's not true at all. And I think it is a much wiser choice than I used to think. My second point was BS01 has every reason to stay, because it is still a fact wiki, and those facts will still stay. It'll be interesting to see what BZ Power does, because like I said, if it does adapt to the new one and add that on, then that's great, it'll keep going. If not, I am curious as to how the fan base will go, because, if at some point storyline does end, then they won't have a whole lot more to talk about. And I think a lot of people will stay just for fandom and, arts and doing their own sort of stories and things like that, but I'm curious as to how much it'll dwindle down or not. I think some people probably will lose interest at some point, but I'm interested to see how many people still stick around, because, it's still an interest to me, even if there is no more storyline.
I'll really naturally start taking bets for that, because I'm thinking about another 5 years after the storyline ends is probably when it would stop getting interest. Because, you got to consider, by then, something new is going to come up that's going to capture the attention. And unfortunately, with our society these days, we have short attention spans, if we think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for some of the...
butterfly,
For some of the older fans, they haven't been interested in the last couple years, some of them, but they still have kept their interest up in the first few years and still do their own sort of thing about that. So it makes me wonder if the ones that were really into it from year to year dwindle down. It makes me wonder if they'll come back. I would be interested in seeing some older fans come back into BZP and start participating more now that it once it does kind of dwindle down, because I know a lot of people were just kind of shocked by how big it was getting, and it started to bug them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally recognize that, because I was one of the older fans. 2002 is when I started actually getting interested in it, and I will openly admit I was not interested in the sets for about 2005. I wasn't totally interested in the sets. 2007 they didn't totally throw me, but by about end of 2008 I started getting really interested in them. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
With specific reference to the sets, I just wanted to set the record straight that as the image man, I was a little upset that the sets and the artwork that it makes Bionicle such a creative and imaginative world wouldn't be continuing. So that was a little bit of a blow to me as someone who takes a specific interest in the art of Bionicle. I think some fine design has been integrated over the past 10 years. There's been a lot of people who have been involved with the projects, the design of the movies, the design of the comics versus the design of the sets. It's a multi-media platform that we were able to fully immerse ourselves in. But of course, with the announcement that there won't be any new ones, it will of course force me to clean up and improve all of the existing images on BS01. So I'll still be keeping up my gig as image man far into the future, hopefully.
I'm pretty sure they have some art coming up in 2010 anyway, because we've already gotten some previews of that, so go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, and as an artist, I'm actually kind of excited to see how many times they're going to allow us to have contests and things for canon pictures and canon, how things are going to look, because since it's going to be mostly storyline, that leaves the visual aspect of most things, up to guess. I would be excited if they just did a whole bunch of things that they said, okay, you guys can just choose something and the winner makes it canon. The more the better. That would be really cool to see. Especially since it's the last year, to have almost the entire year be what the fans want it to be would be really, really an awesome way for Bionicle to end.
Yeah. So, Trig, why don't you quickly wrap up everything we've discussed about the line ending, what it means to us, and what we can expect so that we can move on.
Sure. As someone who's been involved with Bionicle right from the get-go, I started playing the Matsunui online game as soon as it was live on bionicle.com. I've been traveling with this line for a long time. It was a little staggering to hear that it was the ending, but I think as a community, we kind of picked ourselves up, dusted ourselves off, and we're going to make the most of what was, a full decade of an enjoyable, very stimulating toy line on many different levels, from a set perspective, from a comic perspective, from a reading and writing perspective. It inspired a lot of people to get out and write. Greg Parshey's writing was a great contributing factor to that. Now that we have an opportunity to look back and see how much we enjoyed Bionicle, I think that, we can only wish it all the best this year, and again, all the best to LEGO with their new line, and it gives us an opportunity to really reflect on how much fun we've been having. So, if anything, I think it's warm, fuzzy feelings you should be feeling. I think there hasn't been enough of that on BCP. There's been a little bit of, anger and hostility. I think we should dispense with that. It's a lovely time of year for, peace on Earth, all will towards Bionicle, etc.
Thanks, that was great. You can send Greg your thanks for being willing to carry on the story for us if you want to. You can contact him on BZ Power. His username is Greg, followed by a capital F with no space. And Binkmeister is the webmaster of the bionicle.com website and the bioniclestory.com website. He is also willing to help out carry it on, so show your appreciation. We'll be showing ours, and we're looking forward to what's to come. So that was our topical discussion for the week.
I have something quick to add. I'm sorry I didn't mention this later. I was going to put it in something earlier, but I forgot. I'm not sure how long this sale or how long these prices are going to last, but the last set of Bionicle, as you probably know, a lot of them are available right now. And today I found that at Fred Meyer, they are at a cheaper price, and in some places they are even 10% off of that. So if you're looking to go get that series, Fred Meyer is definitely a good place to go look. I mean, it's worth looking because with the sales that I got today, it was down to $5.70 from $7. So if you're printing pennies around this time, that's a good price. And the nostalgia of it, for those of us who have been here for a long time and have seen each of those guys as they come out, it's really, really, really worth grabbing. Especially since it's the last line. So I recommend you go and at least check out and see what the prices are, because they don't necessarily have to be $7 everywhere if you're not willing to do $7.
Yeah, thanks, Kairu. I like saving money. Do you like saving money?
I love saving money.
Well, perfect. Great.
Let's go with Gakko.
Gakko. Great. Have you patented that yet?
No, unfortunately, Spirit sold before I could.
Oh.
Spirit.
And we're going to move into listener question and answer. I was taking some questions on BZ Power and BS01 for the first episode. Of course, it was slow because we haven't been on air yet, but we have a couple, so I'm going to read them. Bionicle Man, who's a staff member of the wiki, will send in a weekly, or episodely. I don't want to commit to weekly yet, but hopefully we want to do every week, but we're all busy and it's the new year, so we'll see what we can do. But as I was saying, Bionicle Man's going to send us in a question every episode, and his first one is, so guys, here's something that's been bothering me. Why would the Order of Matanui place the pit so close to two important locations, the Mask of Life hiding place and Cardanui? I know it had to be this way for the story to work, but this story oddity has been bothersome to say the least.
My guess is they probably didn't even think about it until, last minute.
Who didn't think about it? The Order of Matanui or the story team?
More than likely Order of Matanui, because the story team probably thought, oh, hey, this sounds like a great idea, even though it doesn't sound like it's plausible, so.
Now, I just wanted to take an opportunity here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got the Mask of Life hiding place in Cardanui located underneath the southern continent. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe you are correct, sir.
Okay, so that's underneath the southern continent, and if I recall correctly, the pit was actually located to the far, far, far south of the Matoran universe. So
more than likely.
I believe that was stated in Bionicle World in 2007 by Greg Parshey. I could be mistaken. Definitely the Ignitus hiding place in 2006, with the Boy Inui having drifted, definitely put it dangerously in close proximity to the pit. But I'm not sure if it had originally been intended to be that close.
I'm not sure why it wouldn't be that close. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I find the pit to be something that's more of you go and you're not coming back. So just kind of the fact that it really doesn't matter where it is, because it's somewhere where people go and stay.
Right, and I'm not sure the Order was ever anticipating there being a mass breakout. So, I mean, like, there are penitentiaries in major cities all over North America and, in the world for that matter, and we don't necessarily isolate all of our criminals in the middle of, an ocean somewhere. I mean,
why not? I do.
Well, that's you. Your enemies are mighty, so you have to defeat them. But in general,
my enemies are buried. Who are we kidding here?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I totally agree with that thought process in that they never expected anybody to, be able to break out. But
Right.
the other comment to make about that is also they never really expected, Makuta to go rebel or anything either. Had they considered that, they probably would have thought better. And, we really has to come down to the Matoran that built the place, okay? They're the ones that built it. So,
and
but let's blame them for this mistake, not us.
the poor Matoran, they're such scapegoats here.
You can see in their eyes, they're totally, totally evil. Deep down. Maybe. A little. A bit.
I was thinking more of the fact that, I mean, if they're the ones that are going to have to keep up on it, I mean, it's just like, well, why would you put a jail, next to a city? It's because there are people that have to, oversee the jail. I mean, they need to be able to get in contact. They need to be, within reaching distance so they can make sure that everything's A-okay there.
Alright, so that was Bionicle Man's question. Thanks for sending that in.
And giving us all a headache. Oh, sorry, did I say that loud?
I was saying thank you, but you can be mean if you want.
Alright, the next question is, where are the Element Lords? That was by
I believe they're right there as I run away, because I'm not quite sure either.
Well, I actually looked this one up on a cool site called BIONICLE01.
Such a site exists? I never knew.
What? I know it.
We're gonna have to go talk to the owner about that.
Good things about it,
Yeah, I was able to read a lot of info about the Bionicle story, and it was really accurate and everything.
Get out. I didn't know such a website existed.
Yeah, everybody should check it out. It's BIONICLesector01.com.
Apparently the people who run it, too, are very good looking.
I wouldn't say that. I honestly don't know. Somebody would have to give an opinion on the owner, I'm sure.
On this website, I found that the Element Lords are in the Valley of the Maze, near the White Quartz Mountains on Barabagna.
Or so they claim.
Yeah, they're
As far as we know.
they're running all over the place, though. So that's where they're around. It's the Valley of the Maze.
Desperately trying to penetrate the Valley of the Maze, although they have been unsuccessful in doing so thus far.
I think if I was an Element Lord, I'd be able to penetrate.
Yeah? What would be your element there, Craw?
Oh,
Persistence?
yeah. How about the next question, Trig?
Alright. This question is from Jedi Master Snoopy. We know the sets are over, but the storyline continues. If that ends, will we keep the wiki going? Would the staff keep going? I think, Squirt, we can redirect that answer to you.
Alright then. Short answer. I am not shutting down. That is the short answer. Okay. But the long answer is, unfortunately, they still have to work for free.
You don't have any complaints from me. So.
That works. But no, I don't plan to keep the the site from. If the storyline does end, then we'll have to consider archiving it, because then there'd be no point in adding anything to it. But no, it's going to continue on as far as I can continue it on to. I mean, my sponsor paid for the next year, so I've got until like September to think about it. September, October, one of those. Okay. And as for would the staff keep it going?
Yes.
It really depends on the staff. I mean,
Right. Short answer, yes.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm going to ramble on about this because I'm passionate about this site. Go figure.
It's good. So the staff are just devoted Bionicle fans, and I'm not going anywhere.
Well, that's good to know.
If the line ends, I mean, one of the reasons the podcast is here is to keep it alive. We could talk about been in the past forever, so no reason for this to go. If BS01 shuts down for some unknown reason, then we'll still be together and doing stuff and keeping it alive in our own.
We'll keep an underground.
Hold on. I would like to also comment about that, but if the storyline does end up ending, okay, again, it would have to depend on the circumstances. Like, would anybody still be willing to carry it on? I'm still thinking about that, though. We don't have to worry about it for another, 2 years or so? So, worry about it.
Yeah. So thanks, Jedi
Let's move on.
Master Snoopy. Next question is, what is the status of the Popmon art? An update would be nice. So Popmon is the artist of the Bionicle comics. We had a poll of sorts on our website a while ago, taking ideas for what character we would like Popmon to depict for us. He offered to draw a character. We ran that on the website and got the results, and it hasn't gone anywhere visibly to the public, so what is the status on that?
If I recall correctly from my conversations with BSO1 General Manager Erebus, I believe that in his conversations with Pop, as a freelance artist, he's busy at the moment. I think there are still plans for him to illustrate something for us, but we have to understand that because we're not charging him anything and because he graciously offered to do it, it's probably going to have to be on his time. So if we don't set a timeline on that one and just wait patiently, it'll come to us and it'll be a pleasant surprise.
Okay.
Who exactly? Are we actually having something requested, or are we just waiting for him to send us something?
I think we're having something requested.
I was gonna say, if we don't have something requested, then it would be good for people to consolidate an idea of what it is exactly we want, because I know as an artist it's kind of a lot more frustrating, especially if you're on a tight schedule, to make something for somebody and you don't yet know what it is. If we gave him exactly what it was that he needed to draw, that would be a lot better.
Yeah, last I checked the talk page, I believe there were suggestions still being submitted. So, yeah.
I thought that we already finalized it, though. That's what I thought. So we're going to have to get really coordinated on this and get it.
I guess we'll update it for the next podcast, eh?
That sounds best.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Alright, thanks for that question, DB. And our last one is from Matoro Ignika. He says, any advice when editing BS01 beside the obvious?
Yes, don't bother the staffs all the time. That's just one thing. Unless, of course, it's necessary. Okay? No. But that's just how I feel about it. Because I've seen a lot of websites where they just bother all the time. And I
don't think they have it as bad as other places, though. I mean,
definitely
the BSO1 members, a lot of them really are mostly just trying to help the best possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's what we are here for as staff members, is to help. So as long as you use your resources, make sure you if you have a question, you check to see that we don't have something already written down that would answer your questions. There's a lot of places for that.
So basically, we love the members. We don't love being bugged.
By the same token, I think it's important that we relay to the members that you should never be afraid to approach us with a problem. You just have to make sure you come at it with a good attitude. Half the battle of getting something done is making sure that it's enjoyable. So if we're all working together towards a common goal, what's so nice about the BSO1 Wiki is that it is a community project. We do have a large contingency of very articulate, very intelligent, and very devoted members who continue to make BIONICLesector01 the most thorough, the most accurate Bionicle Wiki in existence. And without their support, where would we be? You just have to make sure that when it comes time for you to voice a concern with a staff member, that you do it with a good attitude and that you do it graciously, because, as I said before, half the battle is making sure that the work is enjoyable. So.
And let me just point out real fast, just remember to all the members who are thinking staff are, either out to get you or all that other stuff, just remember, a lot of the staff were in the same exact position as you are currently. I had to hire these people, and I picked who I thought would do the job, okay? So the best advice I can give you as far as how to properly edit BS1 is listen to them. I mean, that's their job. They're there to help you. If you're doing something wrong, I mean, they have the right to go up there and say, hey, I think you're doing this wrong. I'm not saying you have no voice about it. I'm just saying definitely you should listen to us once in a while, too.
Respect.
Yay!
Yeah, we try to respect each other on the wiki, and just whenever you approach a staff member, have patience with us also, because we're busy a lot of the time, and we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, so just keep that in mind. My advice for Matoro Ignika is to use the show preview button and make your edit the way you want it the first time, and not make multiple edits by misspelling something. So using the show preview button before saving can save us more time also.
And another comment to that is also, just remember, I'm over here busy a lot, okay? So if I'm not on all the time, don't go around saying, hey, where's Swart? I mean, I am busy too. But thankfully nobody's been doing that.
And having plenty of other technical difficulties, so.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. Hopefully one of my anonymous donors can get me a motherboard, but we won't go there right now.
And that is all of our listener question and answers. So just to remind everybody, you can send in all your comments 3 different ways on the BZ Power topic that you can find in the BS01 forum. That's the BS01 subforum of the BZ Power forum, so bzpower.com. Look in the forums and find BS01. There's a topic there for the podcast. And then on the podcast talk page, there's separate sections. There's a spot for suggestions, for comic discussion, so be sure to send in any comments you have on comic number 2, which we'll be going over next episode. We'd love to read them on the air. And question and answer submission, if you have any question about Bionicle, about BS01, about the podcasts, go ahead and add them.
Even about us.
Add them there.
Ask about us if you want to.
Yeah, ask about Swart.
Why would you want to ask about me? I just said us.
And there's also a spot for general comments, so basically we're looking everywhere for feedback that you want to give. We'll read it off here.
Perfect. And just remember, comments about me are not always tolerated, but you know what? I don't really care.
As long as they're complimentary, right, Swart?
I really don't care. You can tell me I'm bad at this. I don't care.
That's okay, because you won't get much of that, because you're fine. We are very, very appreciative of our boss man.
Thank you, Swart, for making it on here, and Triggy and Kairu, you've been great, and thanks for listening to the podcast. That sums it up for episode 1, and we'll see you later for episode 2. Make sure to tune in.